I do want to speak a little bit about this man, Max Miller. So I do want to have a look. It's a long video though, so we're just gonna do a little bit. How you doing, my friend?
Say you find yourself in ancient Rome and you get invited to a banquet.
Of course you do. Of course you find yourself in ancient Rome. Hold that thought.
What do you do? How do you behave? What are the table manners of an ancient Roman? Well, I'll tell you as we make this dessert commonly served in ancient Rome, a cheese fritter known as encitum. So thank you to Graza for sponsoring this video as we attend an ancient Roman dinner, this time on Tasting History.
Thank you, Graza. Me too, that looks good. I wonder if it's crunchy. Is it crunchy?
So last week I did a video on how to host a dinner party if you were in ancient Rome.
Yes, you did.
Well, today I'm going to tell you what you would do should you be invited to said party. Now, there are lots of do's and don'ts that we'll get to, but the first thing to know is that other than soup, most of the eating will be done with your hands.
Right.
And so I wanted to find a recipe that could be eaten with your hands. And so I found this recipe from Cato the Elder for encitum.
See, the man uses BC. I respect Max Miller for that.
Make encitum the same way as globi, except that you use a vessel with a hole in the bottom which you can stream through into hot fat, and shape it like the spira, coiling and turning it with 2 sticks.
That actually does sound a bit like a funnel cake, doesn't it?
Spread and color with honey while still warm. Serve with honey or with mursum. Now, since these are fried in oil, they're going to be too hot to eat with your hands right out of the pan, so you'll have to...
Yeah, you tell that to my wife. Every time she eats something, I can't even touch it. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, it's not hot anymore. And she puts it back in the microwave for another 30 seconds. I'm like, you are, how? How are you not getting scorched? You know, the Japanese actually have an expression for what I am, which is negojita, which means a cat's tongue, which is when you can't eat stuff or drink stuff that is too hot. That's me. My wife, she could be invited, never mind a party in ancient Rome. She could be invited by the freaking Inferno faction from Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Not a problem. In fact, she'd say, can you put it back in the microwave for another 20 seconds? Thank you. And since she's going to be editing this, she's going to add something on the screen to confirm what I'm saying. She's going to love it.
Wait to let them cool, unless you are like a certain dinner guest described by the author Athenaeus. I remember a glutton so shameless that at the baths he used to hold his hand in boiling water and gargled hot water so that he became immune to heat. Consequently, he was the only one who ate anything when the food came at dinner because everyone else had to wait for the food to cool off.
Oh, that's insane.
That, dear viewer, is not good manners in ancient Rome or today.
Did you hear that?
Now, this recipe for encitum is sort of a combination of 2 dishes that I've actually made before. The first is jalebi, which is an Indian version of a sweet that can be found all over the Middle East and the Mediterranean.
Looks like it, yeah.
And the other is globi. Cato says that the dough is made the same way as globi.
Yeah, so basically it's possible that they were culturally influenced from a culinary perspective, because do remember that the Romans did conquer parts of the Middle East. You know, for instance, obviously the most famous one being Roman Judea, which then initially was an occupied territory, but then it becomes a prefecture of the province of Syria. But then there are other areas like that. So of course, as they enter certain scenarios, they are exposed to the culture, and so perhaps maybe that's where that came from.
And that's something that I made when I first started the channel, and is still one of the more popular recipes in the Tasting History cookbook. And that recipe says that the dough or batter is made of soft cheese and spelt flour. So that is what you will need for this recipe: 2 cups or 480 grams of ricotta cheese.
I appreciate ricotta. I love ricotta.
And 2/3 cup or 80 grams of spelt flour, though you can actually use any whole wheat flour that you want. Then a 1/4 cup or 85 grams of honey, some optional white poppy seeds, a popular topping for any honey-covered dessert at the time, and about 1 liter of fat for frying. There were 2
A liter of fat. So he's using oil, of course, because again, that's a difference even in the Middle Ages. The available fat would vary regionally. So Southern Europe, Italy, Greece, it was more popular to use oil. But in Northern Europe, in fact, the preferred fat for cooking would be butter. Now, this changes both when it comes to time and region, but just as a general statement, it is how it was. If you think about it, in classical antiquity and in the Middle Ages, food was always seasonal. It's an obvious thing to say, but sometimes we are so used to the idea that we can eat whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want. This is probably a stark difference with the past. But in my opinion, do clip this, I think food was better. Maybe it would have tasted fresher, no chemicals, like it would spoil faster and you would have less availability and sometimes a famine or a drought. But I think it would have been fresher and more authentic if we were to go back and maybe go into a place where they're not raiding and whatnot. It would be nice.
Popular fats for frying at the time, either lard or olive oil, and I'm going to be using the latter. Specifically, the high-temperature cooking olive oil called Frizzle, sent to me from today's sponsor, Graza.
That was a smooth connection. I appreciate that. Let's get him some commissions.
Description, or click this QR code and use my code MAX10. And now, before we get frying, we need to actually make our batter.
Yes.
So start by sifting the flour into a large bowl and then add in the cheese and mix. And you want to mix it thoroughly until you have a nice, smooth, homogeneous batter. And
is this cow's ricotta? I'm actually asking Max in case he watches and then leaves a comment. Or is it buffalo ricotta? I wonder what type of ricotta it is.
Consistency is going to vary depending on the cheese and the flour that you use, but I found that you want the texture of like toothpaste. There is probably a better culinary description that I could use, a comparison, but I'm sticking with toothpaste. Then the recipe says that the batter should be...
I'll tell you this, he's great, he's fine, but there are some cooking channels that sometimes they annoy me profusely because they are like, they need to describe a dish and then they use a term that makes me want to vomit. So I'm like, could you please, you're so good at cooking, you know all the different things, you're so professional, and then you have to choose a word that does not make it sound appetizing. Does that make sense? I think that's important, right? The way the food looks, the way the food tastes, all of these are important. Not that I know how to run a successful culinary cooking channel, but I'm saying as the receiving end of a cooking channel, if the guy is making a sandwich and he's like, we're going to add a little olive oil and then we're going to add a little bit of vinegar, balsamic vinegar, in order to get it moist and lubricated. I'm like, come on, man. You couldn't think of something else?
Pushed through the hole in the bottom of a cup or a bowl. If you don't have that, then a piping bag is actually going to work best, and that's what I used. So fill a piping bag with the batter, and then it is time to fry. So heat a pan with either lard or olive oil until it reaches between 325 and 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then through about a quarter-inch hole in the bottom of the bag, pipe a spiral of dough.
Oh, that's how it's done. I don't know why. This is actually surprising me. I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting him to do this somewhere else and then move it and fry it. But I guess with the consistency, it would be a mess. So that's very satisfying, isn't it?
This is what the author, Cato the Elder, calls the spira. Let it fry for about a minute on that first side, and if it seems to be stuck onto the bottom of the pan, just gently release it after about 30 seconds into frying. Any sooner and it won't be firm enough and it'll fall apart, but if you wait too long, it will burn.
Okay, I need to double check now. We're gonna see this. This looks really good, but I have to double check Miller's pronunciation. 1 second. Cato the Elder, did he use 1 R or 2 R's? Remember, we are on 4 minutes 54, guys, but I need to check this. He's wrong. It's spira. So this is a mistake that non-native speakers of Italian make, and of course this is a Latin term, it's not Italian, but the same rule applies. If you have 1 R, the trill needs to be light. Spira, just like ragazza, it's a R. But if you have 2 R's, both in Latin and in Italian, that's when you make the sound he just made. So for example, ferro. So it's a longer sound and it's rrr. That's when you show off your rolling. And the perfect word to practice this, I'm telling Max Miller because everything else is perfect. And usually when he pronounces Latin, he does a very good job. So I'm only saying this because I know he has an excellent potential, and mostly for the audience anyways. It doesn't even matter. I'm just being pedantic. But I'm just saying it's nice because a word that it's perfect to practice this difference in pronunciation, long versus short sound, is the word Ferrari. Because in Ferrari, you have double R. When you say Ferra, that's double R, but then single R, ri. So to make sure you can hear the difference now, if I do both, so the correct is Ferrari. Repeat after me. Ferrari. Now, wrong with everything doubled. Ferrari. Can you tell the difference? This is wrong. Ferrari. And wrong with both single. Ferrari. Ferrari. Correct? Ferrari. So I don't know if you could tell the difference, but that's how you pronounce a single trilled R correctly from a native's perspective.
After about a minute of frying, carefully flip it over and continue to fry on the other side.
Continue to
You're looking
fry.
for a nice golden brown color. And really the hardest part is just keeping an eye on the temperature to make sure it stays in that 325 to 350 range.
Right.
Once the enquitum is fully fried, transfer it to a rack to drain over some paper towel, and repeat the process until you have used up all the batter. This should make between 12 and 15 depending on the size.
I might try
now,
this.
This would have likely been served near the end of an ancient Roman banquet, but before you get there, I think that we need to start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. So let me tell you how you're going to score an invitation to an ancient Roman dinner.
Let's go.
If you want to be invited to a dinner in ancient Rome, it's important not to seem over-eager.
Of course.
Just as today it was seen as unbecoming back then. Though at least the poet Martial is honest about his over-eagerness. I angle for your dinner invitations. Oh, the shame of doing it. But I do it.
But I do it.
And when he didn't
Hey, that's like, he's being a thug life. I appreciate that. Martial thug life.
invitation, he got rather spiteful, and he wrote about it in verse. Because you're always giving splendid dinners and never ask me, I've planned my revenge. I'm so offended by now that if you beg me, please come to my house on bended knees, what will I do to you? I'll show up.
Hey, that's some proper, man, the sense of humor of the ancients is amazing. And you know, whenever we think about the sense of humor, not only, it still connects, like this is 2000 years ago. It's funny, like I understand why it's funny. It's not like wow funny, but it is funny, like I can understand. And isn't it incredible? This was written by a person from 2000 years ago and in a language that it's ancient, but we could still tell, oh yeah, I know what he means. Like I know. It's like the expectation, countering expectation. It's pretty cool. What's crazy is that sometimes the sense of humor it works in a way that we don't expect. Like medieval period, for example. In the Middle Ages, we often think of this idea, you know, how powerful the church was, everything was controlling, the idea of purity, the idea of being pious, you know, all of this would make us think that they were all very pudic, a word, I don't even know if I'm making it up, but anyways, Puritans, they were very like, oh no, we can't make jokes. The reality is that medieval people were extremely sexual in their jokes. Like there are a lot of stories with double entendre and jokes that are quite dirty, in fact. And that's because people are people. Now, given if you did make one of those jokes, maybe with the wrong person, and if that happened, it could be dangerous depending on the situation. But in general, a lot of medieval jokes were like that. People understood it. People laughed in the same way that we would. And I always find that fascinating because instead, whenever we imagine the past, oftentimes we imagine it in a way, don't get me wrong, it would be completely different, but still.
Definitely a bit eager. Though, if you are one of those people who has to angle for a dinner invitation, and we've all been there, then one of the best places to do it is actually at the baths. Because it was at the baths that most of the wealthy Romans spent the hours leading up to dinner. So there you're more likely to get one of those last-minute invitations to dine, even if you have to wear the host down like Monogenes did. Whether you are in the hot room or anywhere else in the baths, there is no escape from Monogenes, although you may try with all your might. When you pick up your towel, which is dirtier than a child's crib, he will declare it whiter than snow. While you are combing your thin hair, he will say you are styling the locks of Achilles.
I love that, the locks of Achilles.
He will praise everything, admire everything about you, until finally, after enduring 1,000 tedious ploys, you say, come and have dinner with me. There's another type of person who can often score these
We absolutely know the type, don't we?
last-minute invites, and it's not because they're begging and overeager or because of flattery, but rather because they make good guests. They're witty and charming and good conversationalists. So, should that be you, then that might be the road you want to go down. I sup with anyone who likes it, provided he has the good sense to invite me. There I make others laugh, and there I praise the host who gives the feast. And if by chance anyone dares to say a word against him, I arm myself for contest and overwhelm him. Then, eating much and drinking plentifully, I leave the house.
Hey.
These sort of guests were welcome at any dinner party, of course, though they did earn themselves the name of parasiti, or parasites, though I'm not sure that it was quite the put down then as it would be considered now.
It's almost the same word in Italian, it's just that we spell it with double S, so we pronounce it parasiti, but it's pretty much the exact same word.
And a lot of people had these parasites accompany them to dinner to kind of prop up their ego. But you have to be careful, because even as a parasite, you can go overboard, as was the case with the parasite of Dionysius, who, upon seeing Dionysius laughing in company with some friends, laughed too, even though he was some distance away from them. When Dionysius asked why he laughed when he could not overhear what they said, he replied, I put my trust in you that whatever was said was funny.
Man, and that happens to us. Plus, I mean, the name. It's very cool. In Greek, I think in modern Greek, it's the same name as the god, of course. And I think in modern Greek, they will read it Dionysius. Dionysius. I believe that will be how they pronounce it. But yeah, fascinating. We know the guy. Well, at least once. We've all met him.
Of course, if you are one of the wealthy guests who has been invited to dinner, then you too can invite some of your own parasites and clients who depend on your patronage. Though to be a good guest, you should keep it to a sensible 1 or 2.
I'm gonna call my friend Parasite. I'm so gonna do that. Anyways, this whole part about the history, again, refer to the original video because I don't want to steal the view. So I will put, of course, links in the description and whatnot, pinned comment. I don't want to see the final condition of the food, though. Let me have a look.
My lonesome, these ancient Roman fritters.
Yes.
So once all of your enkitum are fried, drizzle a bit of honey over the top, and it helps if the honey is slightly warmed. Then you can sprinkle some white poppy seeds as well, or just go straight to eating.
Look at that.
And here we are, enkitum, to be served at an ancient Roman dinner. Now, he says that these could be drink with like a honey drink or mulsum. Honey drink probably being like a mead, or mulsum, which is honey and wine that's mixed together.
Yeah.
But I don't have those on me. So.
Man, that's like honey overkill. You know what I would drink with it? Probably a nice glass of red wine. Maybe a dry red wine with that. Nice.
I'm just going to have them as is. It's kind of
just
falling
bite
apart.
it. Just bite
it doesn't hold together super well, but here we go.
Go. I wonder, so you didn't put any salt in the ricotta, maybe a tiny bit?
That's really good.
Yeah.
So it was crispy right when it came out of the fryer. Now they are soft, so they will soften up very quickly.
Okay.
But the flavor's really good. You know what it reminds me of is like a healthy pancake batter, but with honey on it.
A healthy
That's really
pancake
good.
batter.
And the texture is fun because it's like a little squiggle. Stop eating. I'm going to eat all these. Yeah, I kind of didn't expect it to be...
You know, I need to buy his book, Tasting History with Max Miller. I've got to buy this book, but I'm totally trying this one tomorrow. I'm going to tell my wife.
As good as it is. Cheese is the main ingredient, and yet it doesn't taste like cheese at all. Like I said, it tastes like pancake batter, but the texture is kind of like squishy on the inside. Like I said, they were crispy on the outside. I wish I could have kept that, but
Yeah.
that lasted for all of like 2 minutes and they soften up. The cheese is really good. Just doesn't taste like cheese. I don't know. They're really good. You should make these. They're kind of tricky, I'm not going to lie. About half of them that I made did not turn out well.
Really?
They come apart in the fryer and everything, but even if you only get half, then that's pretty good.
Oh, man, if you get only half, I'm getting 1 in 10. But hey, I'll try it. Anyways, pretty cool, as usual. He's great. I'll give him a like. And I'm going to have to try these 100%.